when you're writing on a show during those months, are you ever going home and working on your own original stuff?
Yes. So Rob and I were a lot in the early days of spec writing. We'd be working as writers' assistants, and we'd work 12 or 13 hours a day on the show, and then still spend another 2 or 3 hours at work, and pretty much every Saturday working together. Currently, when I'm working on shows, I'm not really working. Well, I guess that's not true. I'm generally developing other pitches, but I haven't. I've generally written my own spec pilots. On my own time. Now, some of it is at my level now. So when I was running Goodwitch, I was working 90 hours a week, and I've done the math. It's not an exaggeration, because we're working. That's the problem with hour-long shows. Which is why you want to do a lot of if you have 8 to 10 weeks in the room before the show starts. We're running camera 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, which is actually a 13-hour day when you add lunch in, and then I might have a meeting beforehand and have to look at an edit cut after. So I'm trying to be on set and get to a costume meeting and a production meeting and maybe drive to location. Yeah. And then over the weekend, I'm writing for 13 to 15 hours a day because I'm dealing with network notes, or I'm listening to a music cut, or I'm looking at the latest edit cut. And I'm also supposed to be in the edit room a few hours each week with the editor, so it suddenly becomes, so I didn't have time to work on anything else. Also, there's a certain level of mental exhaustion that happens when you're working that just doesn't really give me time, which is why I look back to the discipline Rob and I had when we were writer's assistants. Is we just said we have to be working on something new, and we'd find that time. And obviously, if a day went really long, we wouldn't stay and write, but if the writers were gone by 7 or so, we'd stay and write till about 10. Which kept me away from home a lot. I mean, in those days, we're probably working 60 or 70 hours a week by the time you add up work and then also writing. But it's hard at this level. But then again, when Rob and I were on Buffy in the final, we actually we both asked to be left, and we were fired at the end of season 2. We went to Joss and said, we either want to be more involved with the show or less, because we just didn't feel we were like clicking. We were doing a lot of Monster of the Week stories and not into the mythology stories. And Joss really didn't like the writer's room very much, so we didn't spend a lot of time breaking stories together. And that's at that time, because we had time, we started writing our King of the Hill spec, which ended up, because we wanted to actually get back into half-hour comedy. We had the Buffy experience was kind of a detour. We had written a half-hour script for a show called The Adventures of Pete and Pete, which was on Nickelodeon. It was that script that Joss read and decided he wanted to hire us off of that. So we were trying to get back into comedy, and then we wrote The King of the Hill and ended up on 70 Show.